starts a new legislative session. So the maps behind me are like, some of them are city council districts, other ones are legislative. So like that's state legislation. Every year we go into the new legislative session with certain bills that we want to pass. So the first year was expanding voting sites and same-day voter registration or on-site voter registration. The second year was raising the minimum wage, which is a big thing because in Baltimore, you know, there's a lot of poverty and the cost of living is pretty high and people can't afford to live here. So that's part of the reason why there's so much poverty. So the minimum wage was $7.25 and it was raised to $10.10. So we put that bill in at the beginning of the session, and we fought for it with through different methods with people from the community and actual people that worked in fast food. And you know, we helped to promote their stories, and we testified in front of. Sometimes we testified in front of Congress. Other times we testified at the State House in Annapolis, Maryland, and you know, we helped to influence the minimum wage getting raised to $10.10. But coming up, there's going to be a fight to raise the minimum wage in Baltimore to $15 per hour. Our most recent battle was with ex-felon voting rights. So we believe that if you do a crime and you're sentenced to jail or prison, as soon as you're released, you should be able to vote. But it's not that way in Maryland. It's once you finish your probation or parole, you can vote. Some people are on probation for an extended amount of time. Some people are on parole for an extended amount of time. So that takes a certain segment who's out. They might be working, they're paying taxes, but they can't vote. So that doesn't even make sense. And so just recently, the governor decided to veto the bill. So it passed the State House, it passed the State Senate, and it was on the governor's desk. And all he had to do was sign the bill and it was going to go into law. But he said, no, he vetoed it. So now we have to regroup and go back to the drawing board and be prepared to fight that again. Hopefully it won't take as long as it did the last time. So, you know, we're pushing forward with that. We're also looking to get more money for community schools in Baltimore, which is school education is very important. But the schools are underperforming here in Baltimore City. Myself and my colleagues, we all sit down and put together a strategic plan on how we'll go about doing this. So like my group, we offer the community. We offer everyday people from the community to speak to the issues. There might be another group that we work with and they specialize in teachers. They might just have a bunch of teachers and the teachers will speak to what it's like and why they need more funding for schools as a teacher. Our community people many of them are parents of students, and we'll get the parents to say, hey, this is why we need more money for schools because my son and my daughter are experiencing this. And then there might be an advocacy group which is full of lawyers who know the law, who know policy kind of inside and out, and they'll break down the policy part. And so like everybody has their own specific job to do. It's kind of like a car.
Cooperation.
Yeah, it's kind of like an engine on a car where each part has its own job. And it's not a corporation, it's a coalition. Not a corporation, coalition. So we want to make sure that there's no parts being duplicated that doesn't have to be duplicated. You know? Usually that's who we end up taking aim at is the government. Like, you know, everything, you know, as far as changing stuff comes through the government for the most part. So it just depends on what sector of the government. Sometimes we have to approach the mayor. Other times we just have to go to a city councilman. If it's not a city councilman, sometimes we have to go to the CEO of public schools. So like within each department, there's a head, and we have to figure out what we call a power analysis. We have to figure out who holds the power. So the person with the power is the person that we need to target, or the department with the power is the department that we need to target.
It's power analysis.
Power analysis. Baltimore is a city that is extremely defined by boundaries and lines. So you see it's broken up into so many neighborhoods. So it's very important that I keep track of the neighborhoods that I go into and the people that I've talked to, because when we go into those neighborhoods looking to organize them around certain issues, it's important to know whether they were interested, can we come back, and things of that nature. So all of these have been the neighborhoods that I have been to and door knocked the majority of the houses there. I knocked on all the doors and talked to, most of the people there, and attempted to build a group. These other districts are, they just show the city council person and the name and who they are and the boundaries, and the other ones are the state laws and the state delegates and the state senators. In New York, I was able to save people's homes who were, it was the largest subsidized housing projects in the nation in Brooklyn, and the government was putting it up for sale, and they were going to sell it to a well-known slumlord who was a guy from New Jersey. And what he was going to do was turn those projects into condos and pretty much put everybody out. And we fought him for over a year, and it was times to where I felt like, it wasn't going to work. And that was when I first started organizing. And so after a year and a half, they successfully fought him off, and they were able to choose the person that they wanted to purchase the complex. And so those people are still in that complex to this day. And that was my first real victory in organizing. And so that's what kind of kept me here. I'm only doing the same thing that I went through, for people. So I understand their nervousness. I understand their reluctance to get into something that they don't know. They feel like it's a good thing, but they don't know where it's going to take them. So I'm still connected to a lot of those feelings, because I wasn't always this, I'm just going to jump into this new thing. It wasn't that easy for me. In many ways I had to be forced. And, the bullet that hit me in my back was the force that helped to drive me into another life.
Yeah, hi. My name is Kevin I. Kim Dunn, and I am the CEO and founder of Puzzles for Us, the cultural edutainment series that connect people and communities to information and resources in a fun way. I founded Puzzles for Us in around 2007, 2008. I've been doing it as a full-time business since 2010. My reason for starting the company was that, I think learning should be a fun experience for children and adults, and that as a way of, just sharing information about the history and culture, particularly about African American and Latino communities. What I do global, because again, I really believe that the puzzles is a good way of connecting people and communities to information and to resources. Because it's fun. The puzzles are fun. The word search, the crossword, you're reading, you're learning, but you're having fun, and it's interesting. So when things are interesting, people are more likely to pick it up and want to do it more. And so it's a great way to share information. Well, see education of the future for the 21st century, educators are trying to be more creative, innovative, because especially here in the U.S., there's a lot of issues around literacy that, even though, we speak English, but, there's a lot of people especially a lot of young people that's still failing, that's not doing well in school, because what happens is that most of what they're learning has nothing to do with them. And so it's important that if I'm learning, stuff, it has to have something to do with me. When I pick up a book in school, I need to see someone in the book that looks like me. If there's no one in the book that looks like me, how does that make me feel at the end of the day? So a lot of educators are trying to incorporate more what they call more socially relevant content into the school books. In other words, more story, more history about African American, about Latino, about Native American, about Asian American, because we all have a part in this. And so it's important that as educators that we use whatever we can as a way of reaching the people that we're trying to educate. So with me is the puzzles. Sometimes you could use video, you could use music. You said rap and hip hop. You could use a rap music and hip hop music because this is what young people are listening to. For science and math, there's a lot of things that you could do, but you have to make it practical. You have to make it hands-on. You have to make it interesting. You have to make it relevant. You have to use examples that people could relate to, that's familiar to them. So, like for example, when I go into schools and like with math, I may give an example. Like here, we have cards. Like when you take public transportation, you have to swipe the card. When you pay for it, like say if you pay $10, maybe you get 5 rides plus one extra one. So sometimes you could swipe somebody. If I swipe once, that's 1 ride. If I swipe 2, that's 2 rides. So now if I buy a card for $10 and I get 1 extra, how many people can I swipe? On that card. So when I go into the classroom and I'm talking to young people, they know about the cards because they use it every day. So it's practical. It's something they can relate to. So I said, well, look, here's a math problem. I have $10. I want to go buy what we call a Metro card. I'm going to use it to take the train or the bus. Okay, if I get 5 rides for $10 plus 1 free extra one, how many people can I swipe? How many of your friends can you? And so they have to think. It's critical thinking, but it's math. Now they have to conceptualize. They have to think about it. And so you could give them an example on the board. So there's ways where you could be innovative and creative to engage. Okay, if we go to the store, we hungry. We going to get something to eat. We go get a pizza. Okay. He sliced it up. How many slices? There's 5 of us. It's a big pie. How many slices? How many times does he has to cut it? Maybe if for everybody to get 2 slices. Again, it's a math problem, but it's something that they're familiar with. So I think educators have to find ways of making learning more fun and making it more relevant by coming up with innovative ways and creative ways to make it, to get the people that they're teaching to show how it's relevant, how it's useful, and how they could take this information and go back to their community and use it every day.
My work as an activist started when I was a teenager, 18 years old, when I was in college at Rutgers University. I happen to have a t-shirt on today in New Jersey, where I'm from, the state of New Jersey here in America. I discovered the anti-apartheid movement. Nelson Mandela was in prison, still in South Africa. There was still apartheid in South Africa. And I learned a lot about what was happening in that part of the world, and it had such a big influence on me. I decided to get involved in the anti-apartheid movement, and from there I just became a youth and student leader as a very young person as a teenager and in my early 20s, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I'm now in my 40s. And so it was the apartheid movement in South Africa, the anti-apartheid movement that was happening in South Africa and all around the world. And up until that time, I didn't really know that there were, things happening in places like Africa, like Brazil, the Caribbean, the West Indies, wherever black people were. So it led me to studying about different movements all around the world, including Brazil, and I happened to visit Brazil about 2 years ago, and I love Brazil. It's a big, beautiful country, beautiful people, and I specifically got to visit, I guess the area is called Bahia. Bahia. And so wherever I go in the world now, and I've traveled a lot since then, my life is about connecting people, building bridges, and helping people to help themselves. And that's what I do. And so it could be anything from violence prevention in our communities, the prevention of violence of men assaulting women, any kind of violence, dealing with issues of jobs and education for young people, We deal a lot with, like tomorrow, this week, I'll be doing a lot of work around the stuff happening with guns in our country. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guns in America, a lot of violence tied to those guns, and so we do work around that. We help people in the prison system, people to keep them out of jail, or young people who are coming out of jail and looking for to turn their lives around. So anything that could be of service. And we have an organization called BK Nation here in America. The BK stands for Building Knowledge, and it's really about being a space for information, resources, and services for people. And you can see that on our website, bknation.org.
I started to do the nanny series because my mother was a nanny and a domestic worker, so she went out and cleaned people's houses, but she also had children that came to our house to, she would babysit them, particularly children of the people who are teachers, because our school was right across the street. And so she, one of the teachers asked my mother if she would watch her kid when she had the baby, because, she had to work. So my mother said, okay, because she's usually at home, my mother. And so, over the years, she got more and more kids. And when she first started to do that, I was like 4 or 5, so I didn't go to school yet. So, I was there with her when she was watching them, and it was sort of odd. But, and so then as I grew up and I started painting, I guess I remembered that, and, I started doing one painting and then another one, and then I realized that it was like a whole series of paintings, So I'm still doing it, it's like really showing the black and white thing, and, like actually faces of people that are different colors and they're interacting or whatever. But, it's not something that you see a lot in paintings and stuff, or, in like a real way. Like you could see it, but it's sort of like Mary Poppins or, like fake, So anyway, yeah, it's a weird thing. I've been painting for a very long time. This is all that I've ever done. And it's like, people want to say, oh, you're a black artist or whatever, but it's like, it's not like really I'm a black artist. I'm just black, and I'm an artist. So I paint things that I like and things that I know about and things that I want to paint, and so since it happens to be most of the time something that's black, well, that's what it is, but I'm not like, oh, I'm a black artist. On the other hand, I love black stuff, and black people and the culture and all of this, so I'm perfectly happy to do that, But it's not like I just said, oh, I want to just paint black things all the time, or black people, and I don't, in fact, but I definitely love the culture, so it's easy to do that.
I've seen from my experiences with Ghana, I've seen that they've been able to, show a greater love of family, support, how they work together, which encourages me and even our members on this side to work stronger together. Actually defer that to our Chief Operating Officer, because she's, as I mentioned, one of the elders. She's the one that was originated and was one of the founders of OEADA in the beginning, so she can give a greater picture of the basis of the organization being founded and our goals and what we're looking to accomplish in moving forward with the organization. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say it was hard in the beginning. Truly, with the love that we have for what we were doing when we initially, as I mentioned, we initially put out a proposal to Polycom. They loved the idea of the utilizing their equipment to bring people together. That's why they're our premier sponsor to this day. And so they were more than happy to sponsor us with equipment and support to be able to kick this project off. It was in Ghana. We worked in different areas such as education, healthcare, community development, and cooperative economics. Basically, we saw a need, and there was at no point could we say to ourselves, okay, well, we're not going to try to help in that particular area, because that's not who we are. So if there was a need, we tried to help out in any area that we could. And so the ANCC Center is just actually just one extension of some of the work that we do. And this is in the area of education. But again, so from that, we actually met with people from different ages, different lifestyles, different groups.
for 7 years I promoted this African culture, and I DJed African music, and I did a lot of things involved like with this Africa and African culture without even exploring it. I tried to explore it with myself, but I just knew that this is what I have to do, so I've just done it. I wasn't thinking that much. The only thing was the critic around me. Everybody criticized me. Like, for example, why are you helping African when you need to help the people in your country? And so I started to deal with the critic that comes from people that see you follow your heart and see you going your way, and they are like thinking to themselves, oh my God, this is so scary. So when you're dealing with this critic and with following your heart against all the society or against all odds, you get to you are finding the right answers. So I had always very good answers to a lot of questions, just to make people relax around me. For example, why do you help people in Africa when you can help people in Israel? So my answer was, well, first of all, I'm helping. Are you helping? How can you critique me? What are you doing for the society? What are you doing for other people? So if the person said, I am contributing my money for homeless people and blah blah blah, I would have told him, okay, so you are helping them and I'm helping them. What's the difference? We need to help. We need to give ourselves or give something from us to other people. This is the most important thing. You cannot really understand nothing until you live it. That's why it's very easy for us to critique other people or other things or other places, but we cannot really, because we don't know. So for me, the 4.5 years in Africa, because I was there before, but I was traveling, and then in 2010 I moved to Africa, and I got an amazing opportunity to work in a foundation that just gave me money to help other people, but not give them food or give them money, but to try and make them see how amazing their own culture, how amazing culture they have. Like to show them, wow, you have the best music, you're having the best rhythms, you're painting amazing, your sculptures are amazing, and you need to appreciate it. And it was empowering. I did a lot of empowering projects with the people that I was living with, because I was living in different places.
But I think that has to do with the type of worldview I choose to have, which is it's not one that is ignorant to prejudice and racism. I'm aware that it exists. I'm sure I probably encountered it. But I choose to look at the world as, I don't want to sound like a hippie or like a New York hipster, but I look at the world in terms of, the world wants to be a friend. There is opportunity willing to throw itself at your feet if you're open and aware enough to see it. And that's kind of how I choose to look at the world. You know what I mean? And I think that having that type of viewpoint is why I'm able to live here. And it's how I got the job that I ended up getting. And the series of jobs after that is, I thought that the world is full of moments to seize and, full of successes. You just grab that apple. My life right now started with a dream that I had when I was about 17 years old. I was sitting on the floor in my bedroom, and the reason why I was sitting on the floor is because we didn't have any furniture, we couldn't afford furniture, so, and even though we couldn't afford lots of things, I spent my time dreaming and thinking about how I wanted my life to be once I was able to live on my own. And so I would have journals among journals among journals filled with these like business ideas I wanted to do one day, or you know, I tried to start a magazine, and it even goes before when I was 17. It goes back to when I was like 11 and having a lemonade stand, and you know, I felt like I just had to try to do something in life more than what a typical person was doing. I wanted to, you know, live as big as I possibly could. So when I was 17 years old, sitting on the bedroom floor, and I was like wanting some inspiration or an example to cling on to give me a little bit of hope and to make me feel like all this dreaming wasn't a waste of time. And I turned on the television, even though we didn't have furniture, we did have cable. How funny is that? Turned on the television, and there was an American television talk show host named Oprah Winfrey.
I want you to be honest right now. Have you ever crossed to the other side of the street because a black man was walking behind you? Or have you ever been suspicious when you've seen a black man walking down the sidewalk of your all-white neighborhood? Or have you ever felt uncomfortable when a black man is in the car next to you and you lock the doors? Or how many of you would go to a black doctor or a black lawyer or send your children to a black teacher? Be real honest. How many people of all colors were brought up with the perception that black men are bad men, the boogeyman, the criminal? I want to just talk to some people in our audience here. Who raised their hand just before you did? Yes.
And in that moment, I tell you, it was like a psychic experience. It was like the switch went on and something said, Torrance, that is what you have to do in your life. You have to go into television and try to use television for something inspirational. I was 17 years old. After that, went to college, luckily. That's a whole other story, how I got into college. Went to college, and years later, ended up meeting Oprah for the first time, and it was incredibly emotional for me because I remembered having that moment that day when I turned on the television and there she was, and it kind of turned on some type of light inside of myself, and here I am face to face with this person that was an inspiration. So that just taught me that it really just takes a dream, a thought, and you never know what can happen. Because I can say for myself, having a dream, and now that I'm living part of my dream, and I think back on it, and I see that along the way, there were so many people wanting to get me to change my dream. Why would you dream that, Torrance? Number one, if that happens for you, is that the right thing to happen? That's a very, very, very interesting phenomenon that happened with me, in that I had a dream, but then there's a whole bunch of other people who was like, maybe that's not the right dream for you. And you have to ask yourself, is this what I want? And if it is, it doesn't matter what anyone else has to say. Even if what they're saying sounds like it's positive or sounds like it is encouraging, you know you. And if you don't know you, you got to take the steps to find out who you are. But once you do, and once you do have a dream, watch out and watch it.